Today I welcome Christina Pilz to the podcast as part of the 2017 GRL Blog Tour. Christina is an author of historical fiction, and her love for historicals began with a classroom reading of Little House on the Prairie by Laura Ingalls Wilder. She loves coffee, road trips, and history. She supports the Oxford comma, and she writes every day. Passionate about what she does, her stories will transport you to England in the year 1846. Welcome, Christina.
Hey, thanks for having me on the show today.
Oh, our pleasure. So, before we actually dive into the questions that I know we want to talk about, what's the support about the Oxford comma about?
The Oxford comma is what you use when you have a string of three or more nouns. So, for example, you can say, I went to the store with Bob and Edna, or I went out with the strippers Hitler and Stalin. So, if they are not strippers and you want them to be people, you have to put a comma after every single one of those nouns. And if you don't, then the strippers are named Hitler and Stalin. And so your meaning changes based on where those commas are or are not.
See, I'm a horrible comma user, so it's good for me to hear these things.
And I think they legally decided that it does make a difference if you use the Oxford comma or not, because it could make a difference in like an analysis of a crime or something where that comma is in the police report matters.
Oh, wow.
That was recently decided on this summer, so it's legally valid to use it in a certain way.
See, I can't be a police officer then because I misuse commas all the time. Anyway, on to what we want to talk about.
Okay.
So tell us about some of these literary pilgrimages that you've gone on.
Well, I love to travel, so one of the things I did a couple of years ago was go to London so that I could scope out the places that are in my stories. So one thing I did is I went to number 48 Doty Street, which is where Charles Dickens lived when he wrote Oliver Twist, and touched the desk that he used and all this good stuff, went up and down the stairs. There's a character in Fagin's Boy who lives at number 14 Doty Street. That's Mrs. Acton. She's kind of Oliver's nemesis. So it was fun to pick out her house and know where she lived. It's part of my research. Any historical fiction author will tell you they love to do research. Another thing I did was in London at the same trip. I went from where the haberdashery is located to where the Three Cripples is located. Now, I based the haberdashery on a tavern called The Ship, and it's at 116 Wardour Street, so it's a real place. And it's a half an hour walk uphill to get to the Three Cripples. So and that's based on the One Ton, which is a real location that a lot of people think was the basis for the Three Cripples. So, I just go, it's like a giant rabbit hole to go anywhere, and it's my secret pleasure. It's just what I love to do. It's the bonus for me from being an author. It's my treat.
It sounds like a really good treat, too.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
How did you decide on 1846 to be your time?
There was a map. I was thinking I wanted a number that looked interesting in interesting font. 1844 was one year, and 1846 was the other one. I don't know why. I like even numbers. And there was a map by John Snow. It's called the John Snow Map, 1846. And I went online, and there was the map of London at a specific point in time. And I said, okay, 1846, it is. So it was also before a lot of things started to happen. Victoria was still a young queen. There wasn't a train system. They didn't have telegraphs. It was before a lot of modernization started to happen to Victorian London. So early Victorian London rather than later. So kind of I could do more with it, I think.
Mm-hmm. And certainly you got to, use some of the Charles Dickens stuff as kind of jumping off points too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Places that he'd been or places he mentions. I tried to do research. What I'll do is open Google Maps and take the little Google man, and he goes for a little walk up these streets just so I can kind of get a feel. And sometimes the old buildings are gone, but there's photographs, and photography existed then, so there is a chance that I could get a real photograph of the real building. So the research is definitely a time suck for me.
But a fun time suck, especially if you get to go do it in person.
Yeah, every now and then. So the next trip may be a couple years from now. I'm hoping.
Now, did you ever consider writing under a pseudonym for these books?
I did. When I wrote fan fiction, I have a couple of pseudonyms I used. And if you have a mask to write behind, it makes you very brave. And it's not that I'm ashamed of that writing, but I think that I decided to write under my real name for historical fiction. And then perhaps to get in touch with those places inside of me that are a little shy, I would come up with a different pseudonym and write contemporary male-male romance. So I really have been considering this. I think that it would it would definitely help my writing. Because when writing is yourself, grandma and grandpa are watching you, even if they're not alive, they're still watching you. And I'm not ashamed, but I think there's just some adaptability and anonymity that the mask will give me. So I'm thinking about it really, really hard.
Interesting. Well, I look forward to hearing, if you share your pseudonym, more about that perhaps in the future.
Okay. I do. If you want to know what it is, if the rubber hits the road, it's going to be J.E. Blue, and J is for Jack, E is for Elizabeth, which is my middle name, and blue because that's my favorite color. And a writer named by the name of P.D. Singer says, well, initials are hard to search on. And I said, I don't think J.K. Rowling would tell you that.
Yeah, right.
Right? And there's a lot of authors who do it. It gives you kind of an ambiguous gender, which is also useful for drawing in all kinds of different readers. I think they respond to that. So we'll see how it turns out.
Cool. We'll keep an eye out for that in the future.
Okay, thank you.
So writing, does it exhaust or energize you?
Well, I think that it energizes me if I make it part of my everyday schedule. You know those people, they get up at 5 a.m. and they say they go for a run, and it sets them up for the entire day. That's what writing does to me if I do it. I've been kind of in a slump recently because I'm coming to the end of my Oliver and Jack series, and I am loath to let it go. I've been doing it for over 3 years. I'm married to these guys. We're all married to each other. And I've decided that I'm going to write some novelettes. I've given myself permission to write about them whenever I want to. I'll write little novelettes, put a good cover on it, edit it, put it through the whole thing, and then just give those away. Because it makes me sad. And my friend Wendy Rathbone said, are you dragging your feet for a reason? I said, yes, I am. So hopefully after this interview, I'm going to get back in the saddle and do the whole 5:30 in the morning thing again and set myself up for the day. So yeah, I was doing it in the wintertime, so I don't know why I can't do it in the summertime. Maybe I feel lazy because it's warm. I don't know if writers, temperature affects different writers differently.
Yeah, and different environmental conditions, I think, can impact that, and certainly seasonal would be one of them. Is this your full-time gig, or do you also balance the day job as you're writing?
I definitely balance the day job. I am a technical writer. I've been doing it for about 20 years. I have a great job, a terrific boss, but it takes away 40 hours a week.
Yeah.
So I have to really get up early and be devoted to that time. And I was devoted, and then I fell off the wagon. So
you'll get back on it. I'm confident. So what does literary success look like to you?
Well, I was thinking about that. I think literary success means to me something that I think sounds really boring. And I shouldn't ascribe that to it. But what it is that I don't have to go to my corporate job. I get up and I write. I have my cup of coffee. I get the chores done and have breakfast and do all that stuff. And then I go have coffee with my writer friends. And then in the meantime, I plan trips and I take them. And that's it. I don't want a Jaguar. I don't want a, built-in pool or anything like that, or a fancy car. Just time to do those things that I want to do. And lots of trips to London, of course. That's what it looks like. And people enjoying my books. I've gotten a couple of letters recently from readers, and engaging with them in that and talking about my characters, I think that would make me supremely happy. But I did find one of these points of success. P.D. Singer, the woman I mentioned, belongs to a group called Out in Colorado, which is a bunch of writers in the Colorado area who write male-male romance or just fiction. There's detective stories and, fireman stories and shifter and paranormal. They've just been so welcoming and warm and kind and sharing all their information with me. So that part of my, my dream of being an author has really come true. I've been able to connect with people who do what I do.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it is fantastic. I got lucky that way.
Now, you mentioned you do a lot of research.
Yes.
So what nature is the research, and then how long do you spend before you actually dive in and write?
Well, I am very self-indulgent. I will research until it's time for me to stop and I have to go to bed. I love, taking that little Google man for a walk, going on the internet and looking for the right pictures of characters or places they've been or the bed they sleep in. It's a giant rabbit hole. And for example, I've seen every version of Oliver Twist ever made, including the cartoon from the 70s. So I know, and I've read the book, like backwards and forwards, the audiobook. I've read it like 100 times. So when the movies come out, I know what they've left out. I know what they put in. Though I will tell you, the first time I read Oliver Twist was in 7th grade, and I was shocked to find out that Fagin got hung. He was hung at Newgate. And the movie that I had seen up to that point, he happily goes off with Jack Dawkins at the end of the movie dancing and singing, right? But he dies. And Jack Dawkins gets deported to who knows where. But in the movie I saw, they dance off and they're going to go start another gang and pick pockets and live happily ever after. So, research reveals things to me that make it fun to write about. And I will go on and on about this because it's what I love to do. I think any historical fiction author will tell you the same. That's what they love about writing historical fiction is they have a great excuse to go to the library, the bookstore, on a trip to wherever. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite movie version of Oliver Twist?
Well, I saw the 1969 musical when I was 7. Of course, I fell in love with Oliver Twist then. I'm not a fan of Roman Polanski's version that was in 2005 because I felt like it was somewhat static the way he told it. People in the scenes tend to just stand around instead of doing stuff. And I was like, There was a BBC version put out in 1995, I think it was. And it was just perfect because they just did interesting things with the storyline. They explained what happened to Oliver's real father. They expanded on it. So that was a good one. I think my favorite's the 1969 version, though, definitely. The singing and the dancing, yeah.
Okay. So in the research, do you find that you plot your book and then get the research you need for it, or are you researching to make your plot? What's kind of the chicken and the egg to that?
The chicken and the egg, that's a good question. I think that I get a story idea, and like in college, I over-prepare for the final exam on the first day. I'm already ready. And so I will plot, and then I'll stop for 2 months and just do all the research, and then come back and fill in. I think one example was in the Victorian era, they paint those fence posts, those iron fence posts, blue or green. Whereas today we paint them black. So I feel really I know this little fact that I can draw on while I'm writing. So I think the answer to your question is I do both at the same time. I plot and I research because then I stop and then I go down that rabbit hole. So yeah, they're at the same time.
So GRL is practically in your backyard this year.
Yes.
What are you looking forward to?
I am looking forward to knowing what's going on. The first year I went was about 2 years ago to San Diego. I had no idea that it wasn't like a convention with panels where you discuss ideas. It wasn't a writer convention. It was a reader convention. This is set on for the readers. They get to meet the authors. They get to ask you questions. We had a luau, which I thought was a lot of fun. And you sit with the people who've read your books or are going to read your books, and you're there for them. And I thought, oh, that's completely different. So this year, A, it's in my backyard, so it's not going to be as expensive. And B, I know what's coming. I know to have my books ready, pre-orders, have information for them, which I didn't have the last time. I was just completely taken aback by the whole thing. And it was a lot of fun, but this year I'm ready. And I get to meet people that I've met on Facebook, too. The readers that have written in are going to be there, so that's going to be nice. More like a slumber party than a convention with panel discussions.
That's a good description of it. It is like one big 4-day slumber party.
Oh, and it's a lot of fun. You have to be ready. You can't have a cold when you go. You have to be in prime, healthy condition.
And then you get sick when you get back. That's kind of a given.
Yes. As a matter of course, yes.
So I understand that you've got a giveaway for our listeners. Tell us what that's about and what they need to do to enter.
Well, I've got five things that I'm going to be giving away. These the first one is going to be, it's a word cloud t-shirt. And what that means is they've taken words from Oliver Twist and they put it on the t-shirt. So the words show up in like a grid, and you look at it and you understand what the story is, even though there's no title. And there's also going to be a mug with a different word cloud. I had so much fun picking these out. And then there's going to be a unabridged copy of Oliver Twist, because a lot of my readers have written in saying, oh, I haven't read Oliver Twist, but I really thought your story was good. Kind of told me that they'd like the chance to read it, and if somebody sends them a book, maybe they will. And then there was the movie and CD combo of this 1969 version. You can buy this little packet that contains the DVD and the CD, so I thought that would be fun. And so that's pretty much it. So 2 t-shirts, a mug, a book, and the movie CD combo. So anybody can come and enter once a day. It's set up so that if you leave a blog post comment, you have to answer the question, who fell in love with who first? Did Jack fall in love with Oliver, or did Oliver fall in love with Jack? And there's no wrong answer, of course. I just want to know what people think. And that's worth 1 point. And then 2 points if you sign up for my newsletter, which is useful for me so that I can reach out to more readers. So you can do both of those or one of them. You can do it up to one time a day for those. And there'll be like a week long for the raffle. And at the end, Rafflecopter will spin through its machinations and then pick out 5 winners. And then we'll figure out who gets what. And you have to be in the U.S. and Canada to enter because I can't ship to anywhere else. I'm sadly. Yeah. Maybe next time I'll figure out a better way. But this is what I have. I think it'll be fun.
I think that sounds awesome. And that Rafflecopter, people will find that on the show notes for this episode.
Yes, there'll be you'll give them a link and they can just go straight to there on the 17th, which is when this interview airs. Mm-hmm. That's the day that the Rafflecopter giveaway will become active.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So what's the best way for people to keep up with you online?
Well, I've got a Twitter account, so you just enter Christina E. Pilz in Twitter, all one word. And, of course, at my blog, www.christinaepilz.com. Then Christina Pilz at Yahoo. This is all, if you go to my blog or my website, then you can find all that information on my contact page. That's pretty much the best ways right now to reach me. Yeah, I think that's it.
Excellent. We will link up to all that, plus your Amazon page so people can find all the books as well.
Yeah, Amazon, and I'm also at Kobo, and then a variety of other places through Draft to Digital. Mm-hmm. Apple, I believe, is one of those places.
Awesome. Well, Christina, thank you so much for being with us. It's been excellent talking to you.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
The Big Gay Fiction Podcast is thrilled to once again partner with Gay Romlit as a featured blogger. You can see all the participating blogs and the full GRL Blog Tour schedule at gayromlit.com/2017 blog tour. Gay Romlit is an annual retreat that brings together the people who create and celebrate LGBT romance for a one-of-a-kind must-attend gathering of dynamic, informal, and diverse fun. Each year, the retreat travels to a new city and hosts tons of events from raucous parties to mellow tete-a-tetes, while still maintaining a spirit of familiarity. GRL is the place to connect with old friends, find family you didn't know you had, and meet with both newly published and established authors in the gay romance genre. This year's retreat is set for October 19 through 22 in Denver, Colorado at the Denver Marriott Tech Center. For more information or to register, please visit gayromlit.com.